And whenever you take an unorthodox approach in life, people around you, not just colleagues, people around you would always question you, people around you, if it doesn't conform with the traditional way, right? It is always a little new for the people to accept. But challenging the status quo, and if I really believe in something, doing that has been one of my key career point, and which has taken me so far, and I'm still playing on that, and I'm hoping that this will work out in my.
Welcome to Data Science Dialogues, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of data science and analytics, going beyond the lines of code to explore the crucial business aspects that drive innovation and decision making. I'm your host, ST, and each episode will be joined by industry experts, thought leaders, and pioneers in the field of data science and analytics.
Today, we have in our podcast Mr. Saurabh Sharma, the GenAI innovation leader at Mercedes-Benz. With his expertise in GenAI product creation, he's revolutionizing the automotive industry. Let's dive into his story of innovation and impact.
Saurabh, thank you so much for making the time. It's great to have you on the pod. Amber, thank you so much for making the time.
Thanks, Omri.
Thank you.
Yeah, Saurabh, so we just were curious to know, how your journey from being a BI developer and architect and now being a, manager as a data scientist and in generative AI primarily. Okay, how did this journey happen for you?
So my journey have been very interesting. I'll give you a quick brief of it. So back in college, I was very inclined towards entrepreneurship. I was quite in cybersecurity. I learned Java, and I was doing a lot of hands-on. And think as same as for any college student, right? There's quite a passion. You want to change the world. You get out. I got placed in a company, and I think they randomly assigned that I got to do .NET, and .NET has never been my thing before. So I accepted the fate, went for the .NET training. Once the training was done, my first project was allocated to me. And guess what? I was put on to do monitoring. Someone told me that if you see a red on over here on these markers, you go back and create a ticket. That's how they told me to the first job would be. I went to my manager at that time and I asked my manager, is it is something I won't be able to do so? And this is back in 2011. Industry really looked at freshers from, I think, they don't really, I don't know if it'd be a little demean to say that we were not given enough attention, but the place where I went, I think we were looked from the kilogram perspective. We were just bringing a body to the work. There was no really consideration to what your aspirations are, what you want to do. So I had a quick conversation. My manager was not a big fan of me having this conversation, and he assigned me, maybe it was a little rage, that, okay, go and prove yourselves. I would like to see. And I got assigned to do SSIS. So that was the start of my career. I did the SSIS. I learned SSIS. I had great mentors at the company. They really helped me. And that was my kickoff from the PI, I would say, right? Because back in college in 2011, you were not learning PI. Everyone was just learning Java and giving certifications and things. And from there, after I did my initial kickoff in PI, I got an opportunity to travel to on-site. I was in Germany. I learned a lot over there. And I think after spending three years, there was a phase in my time where I was given an option that you could do a longer on-site. You could have a longer stay if you can switch to SharePoint. And someone who spent 3 years doing BI, for me, money was never a point to chase. And I really, really considered that if I can learn technology and I can be more expert in it, I would do much well in my career down the line. So I took a call back. I came back to India. I didn't take SharePoint. I continued in BI. I went to another account in the same company. But things didn't work out. Things really didn't work out. And that's where I made a switch to Citrix. I came to Citrix as a system specialist. And because before this, I was having a little bit of good hands-on with the functional knowledge, I continued that. I started going much deeper into the functional knowledge. I played a techno-functional kind of a role, I would say. And from there, the journey started. Citrix has been a wonderful place. I think I did my 7.5, 8 years over there. System specialist to, I think, a BI developer, then to a data engineer, and then to an architect, and then to a manager, then to a manager two, then a senior manager, quite a journey. In all of this, I became an expert with SQL. I became an expert with data, and I also became an expert in storytelling. how to derive the insights from it. And that's where my younger brother actually, his career span was more into data science. That inspired me. And that's where I think my initial last 3 years of career of Citrix, where I actually went to a data science training, learned Python. After learning Python, I was coding on it and trying to figure out much into it. And that's where it has started. I was leading a data science team back in Citrix. And from there, over here to and when the GenAI wave came, jumped on it, and as I said, making GenAI products MB. That's my whole career journey.
It's a pretty fascinating and interesting journey, I must say so. Because it's very, very important, right? Because many freshers, if you see, they don't go to their manager the first 15 days or 20 days and be like, okay, this is something that I'm not up for. It's also highlights, the important part that you should always go for what your heart says or really believe in and not settle for things that you might not be interested in. Because your career path can altogether be very, very different. If you're not saying anything, but if you are, raising a point, that point of time, I'm very sure there must be your colleagues thinking, you haven't made the right choice.
Well, my colleagues are, I'm very sure they would have thought. And whenever you take an unorthodox approach in life, people around you, not just colleagues, people around you would always question you. People around you, if it doesn't conform with the traditional way, right? It is always a little new for the people to accept. But challenging the status quo, and if I really believe in something, doing that has been one of my key career point, and which has taken me so far, and I'm still playing on that, and I'm hoping that this will work out in my favor.
That's great.
Yeah, so, sort of the whole thing of generative AI, he has spanned into my career, and, it was not at all planned for. So a problem statement came in that, I have to, classify if a word present in a statement, means in what context in that particular statement. And that being said, I then was subjected to topics of like transformers and stuff. And, completely unplanned. That is how I got exposed to GenAI, then started hands-on. How I'm a little more into knowing that how it was it for you that you were, more intrigued into GenAI.
I'll tell you, I missed few waves in my career. When I was going to join my first company, I think there used to be a website called Jabong or Jungli or something like that. And I was going past in Kormangla or somewhere. I don't exactly remember the details of which site was it, and they were hanging the board of it. And I was questioning myself, who's gonna buy clothes online? If I would have not gone and joined that company, figured out something that day and did for myself, maybe there's a possibility that I would have done something much different, much better, right? I did not believe in the trend and the tech at that. And then the second time I had a similar opportunity with crypto and I couldn't believe it. And then I figured it out that why am I questioning about the failures of the things rather than being optimistic about its possibility? So when the GPT 3.5 came in, and that's what happens, as a human being, if we are late to something, or if even we have a thought that we are slightly delayed to adopt something, we start questioning, we envy it. And that's what I had been learning from my life. So when I first used the 5, I said, this is here to change the world. And that's what I keep telling the people. And that's how I got into incubated the use cases and see how a lot of hit and trials. And I think hit and trials are still going on and will keep going on for everyone's career across whomsoever is implementing GenAI in the industry today. That's how my interest area was built up.
Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely.
Just, out of curiosity, we have seen, like, I have personally seen GenAI use cases, let's say in finance and tax domains, where let's say we have to summarize so many reports, or if we are giving the report for the end user, they can say, okay, what are the highlights? But when we are talking about the automobile world, where we have, let's say, Tesla, and the automation is going on, we have self-driving cars and all, how GenAI is going to in this already so much advanced technology that we are talking about.
So I've actually mentioned this in one of my earlier podcasts, which I actually did with my brother, and I have mentioned it across whenever I had talked about it. I'll tell you, I look at it GenAI very different. I don't look at, so I think it's a baby look at GenAI, right? For me, GenAI is a who went to all the schools across the globe in all the languages. He or she then learned a possible stream, whatever was on internet. And when you use it, it does a role play. There are things which it has already learned. There are things what it is learning. If you have a problem around, or no, I wouldn't say a problem, it can't be called a problem around. If you have anything around where you're spending time manually to do it, or maybe the automation is not up to the mark, this is gonna do a role play and automate. Possibilities with the text images are already in place. Possibilities with the 3D data and graphic design and some of other things are on the way. So other the two things. So that's how I look at it. And whether you are in whichever stream doesn't really matter. It is an automotive engineer. It is an aeronautical engineer. It is a computer science engineer. It is an assistant. It can do that role play. And the skill is gonna be that how to put AI to work is gonna be the skill set which you need to learn. 10 years back, finding who was the first prime minister of Cuba or president of Cuba, if I would have asked that question, would have been for someone to go find a book and then to look into it, right? Today, anyone in the family could ask it to Alexa and Alexa could tell it. So what the person did has put AI to work. Well, let's bring that thing in the enterprise. You're going to use GenAI. You're going to make GenAI work to do a certain use cases to solve a certain problem. That's how is my perspective about GenAI.
Well, I think very well answered. There have been many use cases in the industry for GenAI. And industry, I think, is still accepting GenAI and also trying to see, how it can be, how we can leverage GenAI in the business, right? For the decision making or to do day-to-day work, making operations efficient and everything like that. I think most of the companies are spending on GenAI right now because it is one of the most fascinating technologies these days. But do you see in the future where we can say, okay, we can use GenAI or we can, let's say, build GenAI products, which is very much can act as an expert system and then that can be used to minimize your workforce as well. Let's say today, 100 scientists or 100 engineers are working on something. Now, GenAI, we have expert GenAI software system that can write codes very efficiently and solve many, many problems. So do you see that, okay, in the future, we just need one GenAI system with maybe 2 to 3 engineers team and just all of the team size can be reduced to just 2?
No, not really. I don't see it from the team reduction. It's a very short-sighted way to it. So let's think about everything in the world follows the money. Everything in the world follows
Yes.
the money. Money comes from something for what people are paying, right? In all of this, several times stop paying for something and start paying for something new. Let's take an example. 5 years back or 7, 8 years back, advertising money was being flown to hoardings. You used to see these big hoardings or was used to flown to Google ads, right? If it was online. No one really 6 years back or 7 years back was paying to an Instagram influencer or TikTok influencer to advertise about a product. But then the shorts, reels, and these videos, the short, what do you call, the short time content came into the picture and a whole new stream evolved because there was a consumption for it, which is a new economy where the money has moved from the existing streams and moved to. That's the same thing goes with the GenAI. What's going to happen? The expansion of economy is going to be at much faster pace. Technology has always helped you to expand the economy in a much faster pace. At the pace, and that's what I'm looking at it right now. GenAI is actually gonna add new kind of jobs because companies gonna be able to sell more. Companies gonna be able to do a lot of things automatically. 3-year project plan can become a 6 months project plan. But the nature of jobs are gonna change. That is for sure. So, would you have the same data engineer, data analyst? For sure not. But you'll have a new stream where you're putting GenAI to work where the business. So don't think from the technical perspective. Your work really goes back and supports a wider actual money flowing ecosystem. And if that money flowing ecosystem is going to become bigger.
Right. Saurabh, so, you were talking about the advertisement industry as well. Another thing comes to my mind is, Tesla. Can it, represent itself more of a data company, okay, rather than just an automobile company? And, in your opinion, around what data can Gen AI actually gather to make itself, better over time?
Coming to Tesla as a company, obviously they are very different, right? And data has always been around. So I'm very sure when the GenAI came in, Tesla would have gone through a lot of internal structural changes to accommodate this new tech. A lot of data science teams would have gone through this restructuring of thought process, what is possible in a new. A lot of annotation teams might have gone out. A lot of synthetic data creation teams, what Tesla does a lot, right? Generates a lot of data, puts it together. They also generate a lot of synthetic data for their modeling internally, what I've read on internet. So I'm very sure a lot of changes would have happened across it. And data have always been around. Now the GenAI is going to help. Data science was a way traditionally to process this data. to make decisions out of it. GenAI has just made it easy to process much longer size of data together. So another 1 year or 1.5 years is all about processing the existing data.
And also, just one question, so one question from my side out of curiosity. How hard it is to, you can say, convince the stakeholders who don't know how this technology work, right? Because there are companies who are, you can say, traditional companies, pretty old school companies, who don't believe in these advanced technologies, right? I come from a place where, we have to give visibility to the stakeholders on how these recommendations are coming, what were the drivers and everything, right? We face this very much in day to day. This is one of the challenges when we talk about consumption of, let's say, the ML or data science. How do you face these challenges when it comes to GenAI? Because again, we are saying that this is going to make everything very much efficient, or it's going to, do so many things, but those things are not right there. So first of all, you have to invest for a longer period of time to get the results of it. So how do you deal with those challenges?
So, okay, you're looking at a perspective the way a developer or data scientist sees it.
Correct.
I'll give you a different picture of it. Everything follows the money. Always remember. How does a data science project start at a company? Because somewhere in the leadership, there is an idea that we should do so, and it would help us to do so. Not every leadership out there in all the companies is extremely innovative and extremely forward-looking. So sometimes they learn from their competitors, and sometimes
Yes.
all the CXOs, CS, C-level people, they might be attending these workshops, and they might be going for these future tech conferences where they see, oh, people are starting with this, my competitor is doing this. And that's how the thought triggers. So either the leadership in the companies would be pioneer to it, to try something new, or they would be a follower. They cannot lag. If they are a public company, they cannot lag, because if certain optimization has changed the numbers of another company, your shareholders would build that pressure on you, that why my book still says that you are spending so much on this thing. That's how it is. So if you are right now not able to convince your stakeholders somewhere for the adoption of it, there's a possibility that the leadership is still figuring it out. With the
Correct.
GenAI, it's going to be completely different. Why? Because the results are already visible, and they're going to be extremely visible. So companies, the leaders out there, those are missing this boat at the moment, will need to figure this out. Either they would be pushed to it, or they just figure it out that we have to really invest in it and figure and do something out of it. The biggest challenge is for the middle management, leadership, and so the people at the top understand the money very well. How much do I have? How much can I spend? Where should I invest? How much do I invest in tech? What is my return? They are clear about this number in most of the cases. The middle management is most of the time is struggling with this, because strategy on the CXO level is not told to them. They are given instructions about it, that we want to get this done. They just get that, okay, we want to get this done. And this is what should be the ROI of it. Now, with the technological revolutions, I should say, like this, they might not also be hands-on with this. They might also not be very technologically aware about this. Then that awareness lies into the data scientist or engineer at that. So if you look at how confusing this matrix is, the top order knows the money, the middle order knows how to get something done or what to get done, and the last one knows how to do it.
Correct.
Right. And putting all of these three things in synergy together, a lot of companies fail at it. And that's the reason that a lot of places, GenAI, today I'm telling you, would not work, because your
Correct.
leadership say we shall do something with GenAI. A very vague statement, because they are not really able to grab what is it all about.
Absolutely. So, yeah, you raised a good point here that, the higher level who are actually caring about the money. But, there is another part of it where, we should appreciate that it's the humans who care about money, right? The algorithm doesn't. So it will perform accordingly. So, there is a lot of money going in the back end where you'll have to have so many cloud servers active, so that all the models of GenAI are actually performing, like you want that model to perform. ChatGPT or OpenAI is spending, I don't know, per day millions of dollars to just keep your servers running. So, I would ask a question in a little different direction. Let's say if it's not a MNC company, how should a startup go about investing in GenAI?
I think GenAI is super cheap. I don't know why this perception that it is costly. Let's look at it. So let's say you don't have a car at all. You don't have a car at all, and you have to buy a car. And you start looking at, and you go on internet, that how much do I need to pay in order to get a car? And it shows you that, okay, in order to get a Bugatti, you got to pay this much. And then if you build a thought around it, that, okay, a Bugatti will come for this. I don't have this much of money. Then you're obviously in a wrong place, because a Nano or some other super cheap car, which would still do a lot of your job. So let's look at it that why GenAI is cheap. I think out of 100% use cases, 60% use cases are a straightforward data processing based use cases. I'm not even going into the domain deep tech use cases. Those automations can be done right away. All you need is a Azure subscription, or maybe, I don't know, AWS or something, and go to OpenAI platform, apply for an API, submit $100 to it, give it, put $100 into it, and you get an API key from OpenAI. You're good to go. You're good to start your journey. I'm not talking about fine tuning a model and retraining, even if you have to do so. And you also have those servers available on the cloud. You can do that. It's not costly. It's not costly for the results it can bring in. But you really got to believe in you. You're not if you start with something and if it's 60%, 70% accurate, you got to believe in that I'm in the race, and with the evolution of the technology, this will get better.
No, I think very good answer. Yeah, that's a whole, because even for startup, I think first of all they need to get clear on what kind of problem they are trying to solve, because then only it can be directional. Otherwise, they are going to try many things out, and some things work, something doesn't work. Then it's going to be
It's the it's not about the startup. It's the people. People
correct.
need technological revolutions have never been easy. Crypto
Yes.
was never easy for anyone,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely. Yeah.
somehow people jump the crypto wagon so early that the reality of crypto, which was supposed to become more of a life thing, just it became more of a trading thing in itself. It could not become what it was supposed to be. That's what it is valid for. E-commerce, when the e-commerce first came in, you have several examples. You have an example of Kodak. You know about the story of Kodak, what happened to them, right? The one which used to make camera. They just did not jump the
Right.
boat of making the digital cameras. They stayed with their reels.
Yeah.
And now where are they? And if you look at the span of 100, 200 years, the revolutions, the evolutions of the tech have always made companies either to adopt early, then they make huge money on it. And if they're late in the race, there is always the repercussions of it. Same applies for Nokia, Symbian,
Yes.
right?
I think also the Gen AI, right? Or we are talking about artificial intelligence in general. I think they are also going to change, the buying experience. Right now, let's say if I go and try to buy something, let's say even a car, then mileage and all these things are the one thing. But I want to understand how smart my car is. What are the features that I can get? Do I have a personal? You can say, let's say, like we have Google Play or like Alexa. Do we have that personal assistant in my car who can help me in solving my problems? They can. I was reading that in the future there are going to be cars, or it has already been in the prototype. If a car met with an accident or with some unfortunate scenario, the so the car automatically is going to send some sort of message to those who have already registered, and they get to know that there is an impact with the car. Like how Apple Watches do it, right? They detect whether the person is falling and they send the message. So I think it's going to revolutionize the personal experience of a person, let's say, who is using these automobiles. And it's not just going to be to go from one distance to the other, but also the experience that a person is feeling, the customized experience.
Cars are a lot about software now. They're a lot about software. They're a lot about the digital experience. And reason being that the digital adoption in the life in general, when I have buttons, when I have a touch screen on my phone, why shouldn't there be a touch screen in my car? Why shouldn't I have the same features that what I have in my Apple iPhone? So that is always gonna make cars much smarter. Hector has I think internet inside and things like that anyways coming out. But going back to your question about the changes in the things because of GenAI, remember it will follow the money. Any area wherever things can be done for much faster with the lesser people that's where you would see the most of the use cases coming out to be. If I invest, always remember, if I invest in and it does not bring me the money out, experience is a secondary. So if any company figures out with the implementation of tech, I'm going to sell more car, they will implement it. If they feel with this, I'm not going to sell more car or something of that, or forget car, anything, they would not invest into it. That's how I personally look at it.
No, that's
Absolutely, Saurabh.
valid, right? I think there have been many technologies in the past as well who were not able to generate money, and no one jumped upon it. Very fancy technologies, but if there is no business out of technology, then there's no use of it. It's completely valid.
Exactly. That's where it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Saurabh, a quick follow-up to that is, if you look at the market of GenAI right now, the biggest or the players of GenAI like OpenAI is already there. Then Facebook or Meta has its own GenAI open source Llama 2. Then Google has come up with Gemini. And if we look at this whole playground of generative AI, how will this whole thing look, let's say, 10 years from now?
It's gonna be very fragile. It's gonna be very, very fragile. That's my personal, how should I say, prediction. At one moment, we felt that OpenAI has beaten everyone in this race. Then Facebook jumped into the game, and then Google jumped into the game. Right now, companies like Mistral are jumping into it, and it's gonna be extremely fragile. So I personally don't know. 10 years is too tough to imagine. And I had done this actually. I had asked ChatGPT once with all the technology revolution, how would it be in 5 years, 10 years, and everything. And it started. The way I look at it, it's gonna be extremely unpredictable. And how would these companies survive this cutthroat competition is also going to be very, very interesting. They have to. So the first wave is bring a technology. The second wave is to make it. Bringing a technology, you have to spend so much money. You're going to spend more money on it. How you going to survive? What is your business model where it's going to become cheaper? Remember, the truth lies in the bank. That's where everything it is. How long can you be funded to run a show for, and how cheaply can you? So I think future is about LLM models, which can do maybe 80% of the job rather than doing 100% of it.
Absolutely. We are talking about AI. Let's talk about AI in general, right? We are talking about deep neural network. There have been many cases in India as well, as well in abroad, where I can use any one picture and I can distort the picture using deep fake network. So regulation is very, very must, because even if we are talking about Gen AI is using our data, and there's so much data. Let's say Alexa is also collecting data when we are talking in general, if it is connected to an electricity source. What do you think that since this field is going to revolutionize as we collect more data, how important it is to keep it in check so that it's pretty much safe as well for everyone who is using this technology, or for the population, or for the people in general?
So I think it's a very, the topic of AI safety, right? Very important for enterprises, obviously, to handle themselves. But in general, this also becomes a little. Initial ChatGPT used to respond to anything. It used to respond to abusive messages. It used to respond to crazy things people used to ask it. And then they started implementing a layer where it goes through several checks, where the responses are modified. So with the AI safety layer, you would be able to create quite a boundary that where should it be used, where it shouldn't be used, and things like that. But I'm also a little worried that it should not become a little over, whether it starts killing people's creativity. It's a very dicey line, right? Whether firearms should be allowed or not. If you ask Americans, they would have a different opinion, and other people would have a different opinion, right? Freedom to do something and then having a boundary around it, it's a very dicey topic. But yeah, for enterprise, AI safety would be a thing. But in general, I'm not sure how much of a layer we should put across it, where, our experimental boundaries.
No, absolutely, Saurabh. So Google, I think, did this the first, when it implemented this knowledge graph base in its, SEO, where, our whole process of surfing on the internet became a lot safer for us, and along with that, comes the idea of scalability as well. What strategies can business actually employ to address the scalability challenges, Gen AI particularly?
So scalability of GenAI, I don't see it as a challenge. I think first, before scalability, I see stability is a challenge. We are in a storming phase of the implementation, and it will take a little while for the companies to figure it out, where to implement it, how to use it. And I always say 1% of the companies invent the technology. 9% of the companies would build on top of the technology. And rest of the 90% of the companies would apply the technology. And the biggest money flows in the application of the technology rather than the invention of the technology or building on top of it. For an example, Bluetooth was invented by someone, but AirPods have the most beautiful implementation of it, right? Snapchat or any application today is an implementation of a mobile app technology. Same goes with the OpenAI and Google and Facebook. They are inventing the GenAI parts of it, not inventing the first layer of GenAI. Companies like Mistral and other companies, Hugging Face, these are the second layer of the companies. And then would come the place where we will see the applications of it. So it's a very high time for companies to realize that they can call out their number, quite early in that 90% where they apply this tech, and where the money flow would be much, much bigger than the rest of the tech.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have one last question from my end. So anyone who has been into this field of data science for quite some time, or anyone who is diving into it as well, how should one go about learning generative AI?
Well, I think it's pretty straightforward and pretty easy, right? Read a little bit about transformers, very basics. Go to Hugging Face, start with their on the curriculum about transformers and how their pipelines are and how to use it. Hugging Face will teach you very easily how to use a generative AI model, a very basic thing. Go to OpenAI, read their documentation. Another thing you might want to do, read about the vector database, read about Azure AI search, read about BV8 and other Chroma DB and all of these databases. Those are things. And GenAI has a very, it's very easy to implement, right? It's very easy to implement. It's not, once you're done with these, then read a little bit about fine tuning. So you can actually put a good course together. And if you read, I think 30 days is good enough time for you to start your career in GenAI, the way I look at it.
It's great.
Got it. Perfect.
So yeah, I think I'm also exhausted with the list of questions. I think it was such a great podcast. Many new thoughts and new ways of looking at the problem is something that I must say. It was very nice talking. Very nice talking.
Anytime. And the people out listening there, especially, I would have a message for the people in the college and people starting their careers. If you are really in the probability of you starting a career at the time of one of the greatest technology revolutions, if you look at the probability of it, it's going to be extremely rare. Do the maths. How many students get out of colleges every year? And if you look at a decade, or if you look at 2 decades, how many time a technological revolution like this come? So if you see your probability of being there at this time, please go ahead, pick up the books, read on it, and just study a little. It will work out.
Absolutely, Saurabh. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for making the time. I can always think of a new way of implementing Gen AI now, and and that list I think is going to be endless. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you
Perfect.
so much.
Thank you, Soumya, and thank you, Amber. Thanks for having me.